Hey everyone, welcome to the channel and another review. I just got back from seeing Infinite Storm at the theater, so let's talk about it. So Infinite Storm is a movie about when a climber gets caught in a blizzard and she encounters a stranded stranger and must get them both down the mountain before nightfall. So my background going into this movie, I've seen the trailer for this a few times now in front of movies over the last probably a month or so. So it looked pretty good. Like going into it, I think it looked like it was almost like a documentary like film, but it could have been, but I think the trailer made it clear that it was an actual film. But just some of the shots were, even from the trailer, were very gorgeous. So I was interested to see this. It's not, your typical run-of-the-mill film. So kind of, it's a wilderness type adventure sort of story. So I was interested to see it. And yeah, with that, let's get into what I thought. And we'll just start off with the things that I liked about the film. So yeah, front and foremost, I think the film was shot very well, and I really loved the landscapes that they were able to capture on film. Like, I could even just yeah, being able to sit there and just watch that for a few hours. If there was no story or anything to accompany it, like I would sit through that. It was very beautiful landscapes, so that I thought elevated the movie quite a bit. I also thought Naomi Watts did a very good job acting. I think she very she did, yeah, very good job selling her character as somebody who's experienced and, is able to handle the situation, but also understands the gravity of it and, gets you to the point where you're concerned for the characters. I also liked that they eventually, not to really go into spoilers, but I did like how they, yeah, eventually give us a reason as to why John is on the mountain, why he's up there, and that they kind of resolve that. It might have been interesting if they had just left you to wonder, but I liked that they told us. And similarly, like it's hinted at earlier on in the film, that something happened to her daughters, and there again they could have just left that up to your imagination, but I appreciated that they actually showed us that. And that was actually one of my favorite kind of scenes for how they did it, where she is just going to sleep, and then when she wakes up, it takes you a minute to realize that you've actually gone back in time, and she's not waking up the next morning. She's waking up a morning like 10 years prior, or however long it's been. So that was yeah, a fun scene where it just kind of throws your brain for a loop, and it has to readjust and realize that it went back in time without actually telling you. But yeah, so I did like that they showed us what happened to her daughters. It was, yeah, truly heartbreaking, but yeah, so like it was very sad, but good to see that in the movie as well. And then I really liked the scene where, I mean, I guess kind of minor spoiler alert, like she she gets back down the mountain and she's just crashing at home. So yeah, she gets home and she's exhausted from the whole day, and yeah, that I thought was done really well. Just like dropping like her different layers on the ground, not really caring where the clothes end up, and then just like crashing in front of the fridge, chewing on some pizza, and downing a beer. I've last year I ran my first marathon, so like going through the process of training for that. I don't think I've ever quite been as exhausted as she looked in the movie, but I've been close to that enough where I can relate to like what she was going through, and just like you get in the door and all you want to do is just like sit down and go to sleep basically. So I thought that was very well captured. So yeah, overall, those are the things that I liked. There were a few things that I didn't care for as much, and the first one being the story. Like, while it's generally like a compelling story of somebody trying to rescue another human being, and that's just very powerful in the subject matter. Apart from that, I thought that it was fairly straightforward in how it played out, and I thought, yeah, a lot of things were fairly predictable, at least from my point of view, and how it progressed. But yeah, that's without kind of getting into spoilers. I did think it was, this is a pretty, like, this is more of like a technical critique or a nitpick almost, but so it's fairly early on, it's on her way up the mountain. She falls in like that hole where it wasn't like solid ground underneath. And like on the final attempt when she does get out, she's like getting out but kind of backing out of the hole where her back is on it, and then it cuts and then she's on her stomach. And I was like, that's I don't, yeah, I thought that was that's a critique, and it's a bad edit in my opinion, because it went from her on her back to her stomach, and I don't think she could have physically gotten into that position from where we saw her the split second before. But minor critique, not too big of a problem, but just something that I noticed and thought I'd bring up. The other thing I didn't really care for was how often it like cut to black and then put the time on the screen. I thought that would be fairly more effective if it was only used like once or twice and it was a more significant time, like, we're now getting into night, or a long time has passed. But they used it, like, sometimes they went that route and sometimes they just popped the time up on the screen. So I thought it was weird that there was that mixture and that inconsistency, and then like given like the blackout screen with time felt like more of a scene break. It was weird when they were still doing that just in like 10-minute increments. Like I think we saw it was like 2:30 and then 2:40 and then like 3 o'clock or something. It was something like that where they're all very close together and each one of those cut to black, and I was like, it just seemed like a kind of a poor editing choice, but maybe that was just me. And then just some other minor nitpicks. Maybe it's just that I haven't seen snow like this before, but I thought the snow seemed like fairly synthetic, or I thought like maybe it was real and I just haven't seen snow like that. I grew up in Minnesota, so it's a different sort of atmosphere than, out on the East Coast in this sort of mountain setting. But it seemed like very powdery and not like really sticky, but I haven't really seen powder snow. So I know it's a thing, but yeah. So like, especially when she falls in the hole and all the snow is just falling on top of her, it almost looked like packing peanuts that are like that sort of material, and it didn't really look like snow, at least from what I've experienced. So if snow really does look like that, and if you've seen it, like I'd love to be corrected on that. That is, if it really looks that way, that's interesting. But I haven't seen snow behave that way. And then kind of following that up, I kind of laughed to myself at the beginning of the movie where she's got the weather on and it's giving like a warning that it could drop below freezing that day. And I was like, that's, wow. I live in Minnesota, so at this point in the year, if we get, around freezing temperatures, that's actually pretty nice weather, and it means that it's getting warmer. So the fact that was like a big warning, although I mean it was accompanied by the strong wind, so I'll give it that. But I kind of chuckled to myself. I'm like, that's nothing. Although to be fair as well, it would be a different story if you were stuck outside overnight in that. But yeah, so just some minor nitpicks. I think the film overall was a good film. I think it's on the lower end of good. I was kind of between good and meh on this one. I was kind of tired going into it because I had just eaten. So like the first act of the movie was kind of hard to get through. I was like, it was hard to keep my eyes open, but by the end of the movie I was awake, so it at least didn't put me to sleep. And like the first act it wasn't the first act's fault that it was hard for me to stay awake. It was just I was going into the movie tired. But it's just that the story wasn't overly compelling in my opinion, but what elevated it was the performance by Naomi Watts, and especially how much of the scenery they captured and just how beautiful that was on film. So it's I think it's one that I would recommend if you think you'd like this type of movie. I think you know what you're getting for this movie. So yeah, I think it's not one I'd go out of my way to recommend, but I think it's enjoyable if you think you're open to this sort of a movie. So yeah, that does it for my review for Infinite Storm. If you've had a chance to see it, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Let me know what you think of the movie. Otherwise, if you've enjoyed this review, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe so you don't miss my next video. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next review.